Paul Schrader made his name primarily as a screenplay writer. He penned scripts for some of Hollywood's most famous films, including Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, The Last Temptation of Christ, collaborating with Martin Scorsese. Now, he's worked extensively as a director himself with 23 films, including Blue Collar, Hardcore, American Gigolo, and more recently, First Reformed, The Card Counter, and Master Gardener. In 1985, he wrote and directed Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. Now, this is a biographical drama film from a screenplay he co-wrote with his brother Leonard and Leonard's wife, Chiko Schrader. It's based on the life and work of Japanese writer Yukio Mishima, played in the film by Ken Ogata, and it interweaves episodes from this life with dramatizations of segments taken from these books: The Temple of the Golden Pavilion, Kyoko's House, and Runaway Horses. Executive production was by George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola. Now, this is more than a mere account of an artist's life. Paul Schrader's Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters attempts to visualize the aesthetic and spiritual arc of its subject, the post-war Japanese author Yukio Mishima, played of course by Ken Ogata. The film opens on the day of the artist's failed coup d'etat and subsequent suicide, and then it traces his life to that point via flashbacks. Now, Schrader juxtaposes the sight of the author in military regalia with younger images of a frail, sickly child, gradually charting how the young Mishima turned to both writing and exercise to overcome his sense of weakness. The flashbacks move in a linear fashion, tracing the artist's radical evolution from stuttering, an isolated young man, to physically fit reactionary, whose objections to American post-war occupation and cultural influence inspired a devout cult of militaristic men. Now, complicating this relatively straightforward narrative are Schrader's elaborately theatrical stagings of some of Mishima's novels. Befitting Mishima's own style, Schrader's realizations of the author's work are a mix of traditional and modernist formal sensibilities. Shot against a vast but minimal backdrop on a soundstage, these segments represent the naturalistic colours of the 1970 set scenes and black and white flashbacks with florid colours and angular, surreal production design. Now, the adaptation of The Temple of the Golden Pavilion sees the set's walls painted in glowing orange interspersed with paintings of verdant mountains and plants, and they're overlooking a small walkway of floorboards over a sketch of a pond. Now, this segment's evocation of Japanese traditional art contrasts sharply with the modish look that Schrader takes on Kyoko's house, which crackles with splashes of electric pink that illuminate interior sets that connote the seedy influence of Western culture. Now, by folding these vignettes into the larger narrative of Mishima's life, this film illustrates just how much his art reflected his changing attitudes and those beliefs. Now, The Temple of the Golden Pavilion presents its young, repressed protagonist Mitsugushi Yasuki Bando as frail and skittish. Now, the miniature of the Buddhist temple that torments Mitsugushi is scarcely taller than he is, but it seems to loom over him with ominous intent. The cultural history represented by the temple terrifies the immature, repressed Mitsugushi, but that fear of Japan's history has morphed into fascistic protectiveness of it in Schrader's adaptation of Mishima's later novel, Runaway Horses. The warm colours of the Golden Pavilion section are replaced here by stark reds, whites and blacks, befitting Mishima's reactionary militarism, and the image of a temple recurs again in the background as the cult leader, played by Toshiyuki Nagashima, addresses his own Mishima-esque private army on a beach. This time, though, the temple looks tiny, scarcely visible in fact, as it sits squarely behind the revolutionary who faces away from the building to speak to his men. Organising a coup to nominally preserve Japan's old culture, the leader subconsciously backgrounds an icon of that culture to place himself in the front and centre. Now, adaptation and fiction blur into one under the watchful experimental eye of Paul Schrader. Using the chapter-like structure to his advantage, this direction takes us through 3 novels of Yukio Mishima and his death too. We are given the entirety of his work with a fictional, glorified spin. It's beautiful. Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, is also compelling. It's a glorious piece of visually inspired material that takes leniency with books its audience have likely not read. I certainly haven't. Well read or not, there's still a good chance of thoroughly enjoying this collaboration that takes place between Schrader and Japanese literature. Now, he adapts it with intense visual brilliance. It certainly suits a 4K UHD. It feels close to his most inspired film of all, with broad shots, a grandiose scale, and a genuine sense of commitment coming from behind the camera. It's necessary for the story that Schrader wishes to depict. And here, he's bringing life to an artist by adapting his works. Considering how much there is to display, this is a testament to Schrader's abilities that he can cram all of this fine detail in without sacrificing any of the highbrow, effective artistry Schrader can provide. It's leagues away from his slender, grueling display, for instance, in his film Blue Collar. But there, he was working with reality. Within Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters, he's allowed instead to craft something where even reality feels like it's dramatic fiction. Now, from this, we can experience the craft on display. Paul Schrader works timelessly to bring some level of exuberant reality to even the most dreamlight of sequences. There is, for instance, an ensemble feeling to these moments. They are beyond the reaches of the real world, and within them, they live in a dreamlike state. And this is how Mishima is seemingly remembered. But not just through his written work, but also through what people actually thought of him and how they project his image onto fiction. He is displayed as a man out of time, a man who lived free and who died the same way. And Schrader is one of the few who could have captured such a deeply entrenched living. Now, Criterion's 4K and Blu-ray release of Mishima affords the 1985 film a 4K restoration from the original 35mm print, and this provides a fantastic backbone to this release. It's framed in the movie's original theatrical release, that's 185:1 widescreen aspect ratio. And a very visually distinctive production too. This film looks really quite striking now, courtesy of the hard work that Criterion have done to clean it up and retime it, with Schrader on hand to make sure it fits his original intended style. Now, detail is excellent here. It's easily at its best during the monochromatic sequences in the film, but even very impressive in the various alternatively styled colour scenes also. The close-ups reveal strong facial textures throughout and strong clothing definition as well, while the perfectly framed environments pop to life in the 4K format. The colour scheme also benefits from some excellent black levels. Again, contrast is at its most impressive during the monochrome sequences, and the rather vibrant tones which ignite the oftentimes surreal scenes in a way that may never have been as vivid as here. Overall, it's a great looking video presentation that belies the film's age and its budget. Now, Criterion afford this release a number of different audio options as well, all in the movie's original Japanese. It has a DTS Master Audio 2.0 core as a backbone to 3 of the options, which basically centre on the narration, and a 4th option gets a basic Dolby Digital 2.0 track. Now, the film was originally released with a Blade Runner-like voiceover, and that was provided by Roy Schrader, which was added to the US audience screenings to help them better understand the film. In some territories, there was also a release with an alternative test voiceover, and which is the one provided in basic Dolby Digital 2.0. However, that's the one least likely to be selected. Of course, There's the option just to watch it with no voiceover at all, which is what the disc defaults to. Now, all of the lossless tracks afford strong reproduction of the dialogue, clearly, and with prioritization across the sound array, whilst nominal effects bring forward everything from tweeting birds in the background to noisy streets. And of course, I can't forget to mention the wonderful Philip Glass score that stands out right from the outset, bringing forward a powerful percussive orchestral offering which sweeps you into the film even when little to nothing is actually happening on the screen. It's a deeply resonant, emotive accompaniment which is a high point in the whole production. Now, the film comes with the original shiny digipack presentation, which was used in the original Blu-ray release in the US and the UK, and it contains two discs, one 4K UHD and a Blu-ray with the film and these supplemental features. Two alternate English narrations, including one by the actor Roy Schrader, audio commentary featuring Schrader and producer Alan Pohl. Programme on the making of the film featuring Bailey, producers Tom Luddy and Mata Yamamoto, composer Philip Glass and production designer Aiko Ishioka. Programme on Yukio Mishima featuring his biographer John Nathan and his friend Donald Ritchie. Audio interview with co-screenwriter Chico Schrader. Interview excerpt from 1966 featuring Mishima talking about writing. The Strange Case of Yukio Mishima, a 1985 documentary about the author. A trailer and an essay written by the critic Kevin Jackson, and a piece on the film's censorship in Japan, and the photographs of Ishioka's sets. And the cover art is the same as the previous release, and that was designed by Neil Kellerhouse. With its rich cinematography by John Bailey, exquisite sets and costumes by Iko Ishioka, and unforgettable, highly influential score by Philip Glass, Mishima, A Life in Four Chapters is a tribute to its subject and a bold, investigative work of art in its own right. The film comes with a running time of 121 minutes and in black and white and colour, and in an aspect ratio of 185:1, and it has an existing spine of 4:3:2. From me, it's goodbye, and above all, good Criterion viewing.